It's the same joy, always the same joy. Because honestly, talking about the things that we talk about, I say we because there are just so many of us. I am really enjoying having this conversation with you right now about these well documented truths, which are widely recognized as common public knowledge, but there is still so much more to consider. Some people still find it difficult to recognize these things as the absolute truth, simply because they remain open to other, conflicting truths. These are the kinds of truths that limit your potential, that constantly give you that nagging feeling that you are just not enough, no matter what you achieve in your life, and no matter how incredibly far you have come on your journey. It feels like it will never, ever be enough for you. It feels like there is always a carrot constantly dangling right there in front of your eyes, saying, keep on running just a little bit further because you still haven't quite finished doing everything yet. A lot of people are running through life. They run from one place to another. They're constantly torn between their own needs, family, and their work. Unpaid bills, distant relatives you haven't seen in years, and complex social problems. And these thoughts just keep going back and forth, endlessly back and forth, with absolutely no organization and without any clear sense of direction or purpose. They act out of an impulse, which, even if they don't realize it, doesn't come from within them. It's an external impulse. This impulse tells this person that they need to do more. Because if they fail to do so, they won't be truly good enough. They won't be a decent and good person. They'll be a person, irresponsible, the kind who always changes their mind. Always. The kind who never does anything. The kind who just lives without ever moving forward. And you, this dedicated individual who truly wants to be good, who wants to be an enlightened, expanded person, someone who is deeply respected and well liked by everyone around you, you constantly keep going in this increasingly chaotic and insane cycle without stopping for so much as a single minute. And what is it actually like to live your daily life this way? Almost as if you were trapped forever inside one of those spinning metallic hamster wheels. What's the problem with living like this? Where you wake up, do your tasks, go through your day with 80% of things you don't want to do, that you don't like, and that you have absolutely no desire to do. You go through all of these daily tasks, go to sleep, wake up the next day, and then do those same tasks all over again, and go to sleep once more. You wake up the next day, and just like that, you end up spending many, many years of your life doing the exact same thing over and over. So, what is the real problem with living your life like this? Why exactly isn't it actually helpful for you to live this way? Because by living like this, you're only living for the outside world. The problem isn't doing things you don't want to do. The problem is that you don't even realize you don't want to do one. The problem is that you don't know what you wanted. The problem is that sometimes you say, I'm not going to do this for that person. It's not because you want to or because you don't want to. It's because you're angry at that person. But you don't realize that. A lot of times you say, yes, I'll do that for that person. But it's not because you want to or because you don't want to. You're saying yes to that person because you're afraid of losing them. So it turns out that when you live your life without knowing exactly why you do the things you do or why you don't in a conscious way, you end up living far from yourself. You live thousands of light years away from who you really are. You're stuck on one far side of the planet, but your true personality and your entire life are on the complete other side. But you don't quite realize that yet. So you might mistakenly think that awakening simply means starting to say no to people. Or perhaps you even believe that awakening is really about not feeling any of your emotions anymore. But awakening is about reconnecting. It's about truly understanding who you are. And what you actually desire in life is not to be completely swept away by your emotions. Because that is exactly what the human experience is. There are patterns within this human life, and the problem in your life is not actually these patterns, not even the programming. The problem is that you don't realize you're living inside these patterns. The problem is that you don't know exactly what kind of emotion is actually triggering that reaction in you. That is the actual root of the problem. And there's a completely different problem that tends to arise along the way. It's when you refuse to acknowledge that you're feeling what you're actually feeling. So, no, you kinda know, but if it is, you don't accept it. I'm doing this. Why? It's simply because I'm incredibly jealous of that person. Because I'm angry at that person. Because that special person really brings out the best. My own shadow. And then comes the question. So, is your problem really this person? Is it this situation you're going through? Or is it the fact that you still haven't healed your own shadows? Or is it the fact that you still haven't looked inside yourself to find out? Is this really the person I want to be with? Do I have the courage to say, I don't want this anymore? Is this the job I want? Or do I stay in this office at this company because I'm afraid of scarcity? Do I keep hanging out with this same group of people? Because with them I have fun and feel welcomed? Or am I here simply because I'm afraid of being alone? Am I afraid of not being accepted? Am I truly afraid of living out my life just like those incredibly lonely people? It is something you really need to know and then eventually accept it. Living life on autopilot isn't the problem. Constantly responding to everything and everyone in an entirely automatic fashion, much like the vast majority of people who are programmed to say yes, or programmed to say no, programmed to bow their heads, or even programmed to be instinctively rebellious against everything. That's not the problem. The problem is not knowing that you're programmed by anger, not knowing that you're programmed to say yes, not knowing that you're programmed to stay in that place that makes you suffer, or not knowing that you're programmed to run away, always, instead of transforming. That's the problem. You can continue to live your whole life, and that is perfectly fine. Do you live the way you've always been living? Living without knowing why you're living? Living without knowing what you like or don't like? what you want or don't want. Living your whole life, living 70, 80, 90, 100 years in the same way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But do know that you will go through your whole life without it ever having real meaning for you. When you're there on your last day and your final moment, you'll ask yourself, so what did I do? That profound feeling of having come here with a specific mission, having successfully fulfilled that entire mission, and now finally leaving. It simply will not exist for the simple reason that you came into and left this world without ever knowing. Because seeking your own wisdom doesn't mean knowing what happens on other planets. It doesn't mean knowing what happens on this planet. It doesn't mean knowing what angels are like or having seen one, or knowing whether so and so or someone else was important or not. Whether they were important, whether they existed or didn't exist, that's not real knowledge. That's just information. Truly, to know is to know yourself. If you don't know yourself, you don't know anything. And if you don't know, you go through life on autopilot. Because when you know, you take the reins of your life. You say, I honestly feel like I really want to do this. But why do I want to do this? Do I really want to kill us? Or am I doing this because that person told me to? Or am I doing this because my parents used to do it? Am I doing this because I want to or because people expect me to? You need to know. And just for you to know, you really need to get out of this autopilot mode of just answering things quickly so that you seem like a normal person. Because that's what people do. They want everything to be incredibly fast right now. And yes, it is absolutely true that you can answer things quite quickly and still tap into your inner wisdom. You don't actually need a lot of extra time to really feel that wisdom before you respond. But today, for the vast majority of people out there, they often find they cannot easily access their own inner wisdom quickly. They require a significant amount of time simply because they need to fully detach themselves from their shadows. They need to disconnect from the reality that's happening. They need to separate themselves in order to feel. It's kind of like when you're kissing someone. Why do you close your eyes? So you can feel. So you disconnect from that image. You come back to yourself. You deeply feel exactly what you're feeling with that kiss. So that's what you need to do with your reality. You really need to disconnect. You need to close your eyes, your spiritual eyes, not just your physical eyes, but your deep spiritual eyes. You need to truly quiet your mind so you can carefully observe what's happening inside you, and only then can you properly respond. That is exactly what it means to finally get out of autopilot. And if your answer is yes, do it. Even if that person doesn't do something. Even if you've lived there for so many years and now you've started wanting to leave. And if the inner voice says, yes, go away, go. If your inner intuition tells you to feel free to select another date to do this, this is not the best time for you to do this. Even in cases where you've already fully paid for your entire trip, there are still several options available. Whether you've already organized it with friends or family, don't go. Pay attention to what you feel. Give yourself the opportunity to be truly authentic with yourself. Because how many, so many, not to say all of you, have already been through the following situation where something happens and you say, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I knew I shouldn't have come. I knew I shouldn't have trusted that person. I knew it was already over, but I waited. But I was afraid to say no. But I was afraid of hurting that person. I was scared because I didn't know what would happen next. Honestly, how many times has this exact thing happened to you? Because you let yourself get caught up in your own emotions. Emotions that are based on your shadows. And those emotions dragged you to the bottom of the lake. So you wanted to float, you wanted to feel without being thrown down there. You wanted to float on that lake, looking at the sky, seeing endless possibilities, being at peace and happy. But your emotions pulled you into that lake, making you feel only anger, emotional dependency, fear, and anxiety. And you really felt like you had no other choice. And then, when the final result actually came, you just said, I knew it. I knew all along that this couldn't lead to anything that would ever bring me true joy or peace. I knew it. But even then, you didn't take the opportunity to choose a completely new path for yourself. You didn't take the opportunity to step onto a different timeline. And worst of all, you missed out on the invaluable opportunity to build a profound sense of intimacy with the guiding messages that come from your inner wisdom. Do you want to live like this? You can. You can live life on autopilot. You can live life just reacting to your emotions. It yells at you, you yell back. It cries, you cry. You can live your life like that. But the truth is, that is not what you truly and honestly want for your life. You want peace, you want serenity, you want clarity, you want to know. Maybe you really want to know what it is that you actually want to do. What is the choice you truly want to make? Is that what you want? Is that why you want to expand your consciousness? To know. But understand, there's a process you need to go through. Because you were conditioned and programmed to ignore your deep inner knowing and your own intuition. And now you are at a point in your life where you can finally decide to change that. But for that, you need to pay attention, observe yourself, ask yourself questions, talk to yourself. Don't choose because someone else wants you to, but choose because you want to. You need to actively break away from this unconscious autopilot mode. And for that, you need to create meaningful opportunities for yourself to get to know yourself, to accept yourself, but most importantly, to build a deep sense of intimacy with yourself. There is absolutely nothing more important in your entire life than your own personal knowing, your deep self-awareness, and your complete self-acceptance. That's where a true and profound expansion of consciousness comes from. That's where the tangible and lasting expansion of your life comes from. Without that, you can create a lot of things and still feel empty inside. You can construct a massive empire. You can create a world that is entirely and fundamentally different from the one you live in today, materially, emotionally. You can bring every bit of it into existence. And yet, when you lie down at night, you still feel that there's an unmistakable sense of emptiness deep inside your soul. And that emptiness can't be filled by anything or anyone outside of you. It can only be filled by your wisdom, By your self-knowledge. Self-knowledge, knowing yourself, accepting yourself, understanding that there's a shadow there and healing it, understanding that there's a wound there and healing it, understanding that there's a process there that needs light and healing it, understanding that it's not about yourself. I feel angry at so-and-so. It's not about yourself. It's not your true nature. I'm afraid of losing this. That's not natural. I'm afraid that person will leave me. That's not natural. Your inherent nature is clarity. Your inherent nature is profound wisdom. Your inherent nature is the practice of self-observation. Your nature is to have an eye. That transcends far beyond the purely physical material, beyond the three-dimensional world. It comes later, reaching into places where the eyes simply cannot perceive. But in order to do that, I need to fully recognize that this is a process. And as you start to heal, as you begin to see yourself, as you start to accept yourself, you automatically start transforming. And this profound transformation significantly broadens your consciousness and expands your personal journey through life.